Good evening and welcome to the FITT Show. Financial information for today and tomorrow. I'm Bobby Kinzer, and we're here every week at 8 p.m. giving you the most information in financial management, personal money management. My partner Dope will be with us in a quick few. Matter of fact, bam, there he is right there, ladies and gentlemen. You speak his name and he shall appear. What's up, Dope?
How you doing, my brother?
Man, I'm absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to another great show. This is our 79th show, Dope. Heading to Big 8-0. It's got a lot to talk about, but like always, want to make sure that you all go down and click on the like button and the heart button. Please do that because that helps us get more traction and Facebook will forward us out to more people. And the other thing is, want you to make sure you go out on YouTube and subscribe. And make sure you put comments in that comment box because that gives us even more traction. And just want to remind people, disclaimer, we are not financial advisors. We are financial educators. So please keep that in mind. With that note, want to get this show started, man. Let's talk about the number one topic at the top of our shows, the stock market.
Yeah, man, and it's continued to be volatile. It's up one day and down the next. It's been
Crazy, man.
yeah, it really is, and you really just have to kind of hang because there's a lot of people now actually getting bullish because they're thinking that the market has bottomed out, and we've talked in previous shows about how after a downturn in the market, it always comes back very strong and robust. And so a lot of people will start thinking it might be at bottom, but it may not be. And as we continue to always preach, you take the long view, you continue to invest, you don't panic and sell. So for the last week, the Dow dropped about 600 points. It's about 2%. NASDAQ dropped 400 points, or 3%. And some of the stocks that we own and follow, Microsoft's down 8, Tesla's down 22. Tesla's still having issues with most of it's because of Elon Musk and his Twitter fight and people thinking that he's not putting the requisite time into Tesla that he should be, and that he's spreading himself too thin and not focused. But they actually produced their first truck, their first big truck that they're making. That thing's it's supposedly it's extremely late, but it's finally out, and so that should give them some traction. But they're going to do okay, but a lot of competition, so we'll see how that goes. Apple is still having issues with their production facilities in China, but they've made some changes to that, and they're dropping some of the safeguards they had to try to keep COVID down. And Pfizer's is the long one that's up. And again, that's my dividend play. That pays a pretty nice dividend, but it is nice to see it go up. So all in all, the volatility has continued. We expect it to continue, and it looks like gas prices are starting to go down, but we still don't know if we've got inflation under control. So hang tight.
Yeah, dude, my gold was up, man. Last week was up $56 an ounce. Even silver was up, but gold was doing very well. So just want to remind people about those commodities out there that still is a good investment for you. Gold usually is supposed to be an inflation hedge, but lately it wasn't working that way. But recently it's been having good returns. And actually, the semiconductor stock was up, though. NXP, man, was up considerably. So I think because they changing some of the COVID laws over there in China because it was really stymieing production in the chain. So we'll see what's going to happen going forward with that. But let's talk about the cryptocurrency market, though. Now that's been up. The crypto market as a whole was up six billion, which is not a lot when the whole market cap is at 896 billion. But it still means that people are getting back in. Now, Bitcoin, which is still the number one cryptocurrency out of over 19,000, it was up 289 million. No, we're going to talk about $289. Excuse me. It was up $289, up 2% from the week before. Ethereum, which is those smart contracts, was up about $6, which is not much. That's a 0.4%. That's 0.004%, by the way. That's not 4%. And then Tether, which is they call the stable coins, which is backed by the US dollar, they've been just holding steady. Dogecoin, which once again Elon Musk is behind, and Mark Cuban, it actually went down just a penny because it was up like at 10 cents a share. Now it's down to 9. Once again, over a couple of years ago, Elon Musk put $1 billion in, and he went on Saturday Night Live, and they were joking. They did a skit about cryptocurrency, and he opened his mouth, and it was saying at $1 a share. Once again, because of Elon Musk in his mouth, it made the Dogecoin go down. So Elon better learn how to shut up. Then you got Shiba Inu, which was at 15. Now it went up one to number 14 place among cryptocurrency. I don't know what's moving that, but that's the scene on the cryptocurrency, though. It's kind of up, and like I said, it went from 16,000 to the days up to about 2.4% today. The Bitcoin is up about 17,000 and some change. So it's the long
Cool,
play.
Bob. Yeah, it's crazy, but today's topic, let's jump into that, and it's near and dear to me because it's kind of was a surprise to me, and I kind of pride myself on being up on things and knowing what's going on financially. I've done pretty well, and in spite of starting with no knowledge and zero money, but this topic it's talking about it. If you're retired, you may be sitting on a tax bomb, and that's something that most people probably haven't even thought about. And I got to be honest, I hadn't really considered it. I knew about RMDs, but I didn't really understand that there may be ways around it. So there's a couple of strategies that could seriously reduce this tax hit that you're probably sitting on if you saved a lot of money. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, Bob.
Yeah, so, and we want to make this special note because we're talking about minimizing taxes for your retirement plans, for retirement period. But for you younger people who may think that this doesn't apply to you, you're going to be there sooner than you think. So this does apply to you. So I hope you listen and take some notes, because a lot about retirement is really about tax planning, because there's 4 buckets. There's the taxable, there's the tax-free, tax-deferred, and pre-tax. Did I say that? After? Yeah, I said after tax and pre-tax, and tax-free.
Yeah, and you know what, Bob? And it's not that the young folks, this really stresses the point of thinking ahead. And again, that's not something that our generation that grew up without a lot of money had ever had any reason to do. I mean, when I first started working, there wasn't nothing to think ahead about. I didn't have no money, and I couldn't even envision. I never thought I'd have as much money as I have now. That never was part of how I handled my finances coming through. I never thought I'd end up where I am. Luckily, a lot of things went right, positive. I did okay putting money away, but you got to look ahead. And I'm talking 5, 10, 15 years down the road if you want to maintain what you have. We always talk about building wealth, building wealth, building wealth, but the other half of that is maintaining wealth. If you have it and you're giving it to Uncle Sam, and we would never talk about avoiding taxes, but what we want to talk about today is minimizing taxes. Because I think, Big Bob, you always say, hey, if you're paying taxes, that means you're making money. And
That's
we
right.
don't never cross with the IRS, but do everything you can to minimize your taxes. So I don't care if you're old, you need to look at these strategies we're going to talk about. If you're young, you need to start preparing because as Bob said, you're going to be in this spot one day. And you have to start looking ahead. Building wealth and keeping wealth as a full-time job. It's not easy. It takes a lot of work.
Though the old guy told me when I started work, he said, son, remember this. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep.
There you
And
go.
that's the name of the game because, and it's just not Uncle Sam. You know, though I'm actually working on a book right now called How to Keep from Getting Got. And it's talking about how to, you know, keep these marketeers, these salespeople and scammers. Everybody's trying to get your money. Everybody's trying to go in your pocket and get your money. And so we just want to talk about things today we focusing on just minimizing the taxes every time because a lot of people don't know there is major tax implications when it comes to your retirement. So won't you start it off with the first
one? Okay. That's is your retirement portfolio a tax bond? And everything you learned when you first start working, save money, save money, save money. And tax deferred came along and people thought that was the best thing since sliced bread. And they all talked about put your money in a tax deferred account. You get more in your take home because you cut your tax bill, your company was matching, and you're putting all this money away pre-tax. And that was the goal. And everybody thought that was the best. And a lot of people did it diligently. They put money away, tax deferred. They opened IRAs. All this money is tax deferred. And wasn't bad advice. It's bad advice if you don't manage it and you've created a very large portfolio. And I won't say it's bad advice, but you won't maximize how much you keep if you don't handle it the right way. And that's what we're going to talk about. So you should still be saving for retirement. If you want to do it tax deferred, you can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. All we're saying is if you've saved a lot and you have big amounts in tax deferred account, there may be ramifications.
And that just was the conventional wisdom, though, was to put all your money in tax deferred accounts so that you can reap the current, you know, tax benefits and then also minimize, you know, tax for the current year and look for the benefits, you know, to for your tax shelter growth. But one of the first things you need to think about is RMDs, you all. That's the required minimum distributions. Everybody, Uncle Sam, say, okay, if you're in the tax deferred, right? He says, okay, you can keep it in there and not give me none of it, but at some point, you're gonna have to give me. Uncle Sam wants you to start paying taxes because he needs the money. They moved it up to 72 years old, where you required to take a minimum. It's somewhere around, and it's a formula, but it's somewhere around 4% of what's in your tax deferred account. So RMDs could be, you know, you need to be very, very afraid because if you saved heavily in, say, your traditional IRA or your 401k, you may feel great about your savings now, but when you require to take the minimum distribution, it could be really frightening because it could be a very, very large. The tax could be really scary, you know, but you have until you're 72 years old.
Yeah, and a couple of points I want to make. Let me back up a little bit. Another reason saving tax deferred was huge was if you go back to when it started in the 70s, 80s, I think it was the 80s, the tax rates were a lot higher than they are now.
Right.
So the money you saved was pretty significant. If you were paying 35 or 40% tax bracket, that's a pretty significant amount. And the other thing, we're talking federal, But a lot of states, you need to understand how your state handles it too, because a state like Pennsylvania, they don't give you a break for saving money tax deferred. You get no break on a state basis, but by the same token, when you take it out in Pennsylvania, they don't tax you. I'm in South Carolina now. They give you a break when you put it in, and they tax you when it comes out. So that's another area you need to understand if where you retire is not going to be where you worked. Okay, so you need to understand from a federal standpoint and from a state standpoint of how to handle this money, and that's what we're going to talk about. And another issue, again, that's a surprise to a lot of people, is RMDs can trigger massive Medicare surcharges. Now, what's a Medicare surcharge? Okay, when you retire, you have to go on Medicare at age 65. Okay, and truth be told, Medicare doesn't cover a whole lot. It covers, I don't even get to the details of that, but Medicare is your basic health insurance, medical insurance. And so there's two parts of it. There's part A, there's part B, there's part D. A is for hospital care, B is for doctor visits, D is for prescription drugs. And if you're fortunate enough to have an Advantage plan, which you put on top of those, it actually lowers the cost of all those services that you get. A lot of people think Medicare is free. Medicare isn't free. You have
No,
to pay nothing free. And the other tricky part is that Medicare costs have been rising over the last 15, 20 years. And so just like inflation creates havoc with so many other costs, it also has caused the Medicare part to go up. And so now, and I say that, I think next year is the first year that the Medicare cost is off actually going down, but most other years it has increased. Okay, so keep that in mind. So you'll have to pay that when you retire. Now, Medicare surcharge is you pay your Medicare bill based on what you make. Okay, and show that table that shows the for the single, and it's pretty similar for if you're married. It's just the brackets are a little wider. But what it is, you pay based on what your income was 2 years ago. So this year's Medicare costs are based on how much you made in 2020. For example, if you made less than 91,000 and your annual cost for Medicare is $2,041, okay, for Part D, and your Part B, Part D, your annual cost is $277. So that's about $2,300. A couple $100 a month for medical costs. Okay. Now, if you got a pension, you got some Social Security money coming in, you got some stocks making you a little bit of money, you can get past 91,000 pretty quickly, and you jump into the next bracket, which is between 91 and 114. And if you're really lucky and you make a little bit more money, you can see how the different brackets go up and how the cost goes up. So once you get to that tier 3, where you're making somewhere between 142 and 170, you're paying 5,300 a year for Part B and almost 900 for Part D. And if you work for a company that gives you an Advantage plan, a lot of times it's free, but a lot of times you have to pay for that also. So again, Medicare is not free, and there is a cost for it. And when you start taking those required minimum deductions, that adds to your income base. So that makes your income higher, which may kick you into a higher tax bracket for your Medicare charges. So all that you need to take into account. Again, that's thinking down the road. And I say all that, you have to realize this could change, because that's how it usually works. But this is how we stand right now. So this is how you need to look at things: Medicare costs, RMDs, retirement savings, and how to minimize that tax bill that's going to come due on all that tax deferred money you have.
no, that's That's pretty interesting when you look at that table, because a lot of people think Medicare, they paid for it already, right? From out of their check. But it can add up really quickly. In the Medicare adjusted gross income, though, it's also your combined uh, earnings with your spouse. It's not just
Oh yeah,
your
it's your and if you think about it, the first year you're on Medicare, that's going to be based on the year that you worked. Okay, because it goes back 2 years. So you actually got 2 years that you worked generating your Medicare costs. So your first couple of years, my first couple of years, I was paying huge Medicare bills. And again, never thought about it. I never looked into it. I should have. Shame on me. But that's why we're trying to tell you guys. So if you're getting close to that point, you can take all this into consideration. And there might be some things you can do as far as moving income around or taking income sooner, or a couple of different things you can do to try to minimize that tax bite.
Yeah, yes. And I know those are a lot of numbers, but we wanted just to give you an idea to so you can see it visually, because it's a lot in this show tonight. So if y'all have some questions, please put the questions in the comment, because this is your chance. This is your chance to ask some of the questions, and we hope we can clarify some of them for you. Because it's a lot, and a lot of people. It's not too late, by the way, retirees and you young people. It's no question not too early. So make
Hey,
sure
Bob,
you
I
put.
think, excuse me, I think you mentioned if you're married, that cost is times two. Okay,
So
that's not a family
right.
rate. That's a per person rate. So if you're married, it's times two. So it's both your incomes that generate the surcharge, and each of you have to pay that Medicare charge.
Times two. The next one is, will your kids inherit a tax bomb from you? Now, you've carefully said a lot in the tax deferred retirement accounts, and we hope you pass much of that wealth. You will eventually pass most of that wealth to your loved ones. Unfortunately, your legacy for your heirs will also include a massive tax bill. Now, parents want the best for the children, and many of them work hard to provide a generous inheritance for the next generation. But unfortunately, there is a tax bite there that comes with inheriting a traditional IRA. Other pre tax savings accounts can be astonishing, and it could be really scary for your legacy. Now, under the tax law, heirs have 10 years to deplete any inherited IRAs. Now, though they can choose how much they take out each year, from nothing at all to everything else, while that flexibility can be valuable from a tax planning perspective, it still means that most people inheriting IRAs or 401ks will have significantly fewer years to take that required minimum distribution, meaning significantly more taxable income during that decade. Okay, so
And,
all
and,
of the income from tax deferred accounts is taxed as ordinary income.
and if you think about it, if you just look at averages, I was the drop dead today and my kids inherited IRA money. All my kids are fortunate enough to be high earners themselves. So this money that they would have to take in the next 10 years would be on top of their earnings, which is also kicking them in the way higher tax brackets, which is creating a large tax bill for them. And the whole purpose of what we talk about is building wealth and passing it on. So that's the issue about leaving that tax bomb. And again, this is all new to these first generation folks who got money for the first time. Never had to worry about this. It's a nice problem to have, good to have money to pass on, but we always talk about minimizing that tax bite. So now let's talk about how to diffuse that tax bomb. There's a couple different things you can do. The most important one is shift that retirement plan contributions from pre-tax to Roth. That's you can change that now, and you lose the tax deduction in the current year, but you got to realize that tax rates today are lower than they've been in a long time, the last couple of years. And truth be known, they benefit people who make a lot of money. Most people know that, but I don't think most people realize that's what Donald Trump did. He did that for the rich folks. And so a lot of folks who make a lot of money are taking advantage of these very low tax rates. And what they're doing is moving that money from tax deferred accounts, moving it to a Roth, paying the tax, and getting it out of the crosshairs of taxation down the road. So if you're younger, you might want to consider moving some of that money from tax deferred to a Roth where you pay the taxes up front, because again, these are historically low tax rates. And nobody knows what tax rates are going to be in the future. I'm not going to pretend to be Nostradamus and tell you what they are going to be. But if I had to bet, I would bet they aren't going to stay this low. Okay.
But no, isn't this the tax plan that Trump put in place? Doesn't it expire in 2025?
2025, 2026. Yeah. Who knows? Right.
Right. To your point.
Yeah. And so, you just got to be careful, because understand, if you're still working, understand your company's plan and make sure you still can get your company match on whether it's in a Roth or tax deferred. So make sure you always want to get the match. I don't care what you got to do to get your company match. Do what you got to do to get the company match, because that's part of your income, and make sure you get it. Okay. And so, and let me give a shout out. The reason this whole discussion came up, we're reading an article by a guy named McClellan in Kiplinger, which kind of lit light in me that, hey, this is the situation you're in. And so this applies 100% to me. I'm actually going to try to implement some of the things that he's suggesting. And so a lot of people don't know that there's an option in their 401ks that they can do it in the Roth. So make sure you understand what your benefits are. We always preach that. And again, make sure you get the match and consider paying the taxes today with these historically low tax rates. Okay. And especially for you young guys, that you ought to be thinking about that. Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. What you saying?
There's a couple of comments I just want to address in the comment box right now.
Okay.
Maddie Ford said, the more you make, the more they take. And I just want to clarify that a little bit, because, Dope knows my old saying, the best way to beat taxes is to make more money. People don't understand that. So yeah, he's taking more. They're taking more, but guess what? If he's taking more, that means you're making more, because he can only take what your tax bracket is. If you're in the 22%, that's all he can take. If you're in the 24, that's all he can take. So, so don't be this, a lot of people are afraid to make more money though, because they're like, oh man, he's going to tax me. No. Just give Uncle Sam his amount.
This goes into what we've talked about before. There's so much of how this works, and I won't say we don't understand, but we've never played in this game before, and so we got to understand the rules of this game of having money to maximize our situations, and we haven't done a good job of that. And again, it's because we never had money to talk about what to do with. But now that we do, it's a lot of work and effort and thought and research to make sure we do the best with our money. And again, that's not something that most people think about. I think you've said before, people spend more time planning their vacation. But the ramifications of this can be thousands of dollars, either in your pocket or paid to Uncle Sam, or as you always say, Aunt Marilyn, or whatever state you live in. You need to to understand this and all the things we ever talk about, planning and assessing your risk and understanding what's coming down the road. And again, I'm as guilty of this as everybody. So I'm not throwing darts at anybody because so much of this I didn't understand. I learned on the fly. And fortunately, I just did a couple of things right to get to where I am. And that's why we're trying to pass this information on. But we got to understand the rules of this game. And the rules are make as much as you can and minimize what you have to give up. And so that's the crux of this conversation today.
So, dope, that brings me to this topic. Now, investors can set themselves up for lower tax bills in retirement using a strategy that few folks are even familiar with. And it's called asset location, not allocation, asset location. The idea behind it is simple, but implementing it can be very tricky.
Yeah, and again, it's a new concept, something I had never thought about, and I had to do some understanding. Me and Bob went back and forth and making sure we understood how this worked. And then once you get it, and some of you guys might be smarter than me, but once you get it, it makes perfectly good sense. It refers to how a portfolio is allocated to various asset classes that have different historical investment returns and deviations. Okay. So the simplest example, if a stock bond allocation, such as 60% stock, 40% bonds, that's a common allocation for retirees. But there are dozens of more asset classes that can be managed as well. For example, large stocks, international stocks. So asset allocation is critical to effectively diversify your portfolio and to reduce risk and minimize your taxes.
And you said the word allocation, but it's actually
Location.
location. And
Exactly.
the difference is actually it's just a different portfolio management strategy. Asset allocation seeks to minimize the taxes by placing different asset classes in specific tax buckets. That's what it means, asset location, like taxable buckets, pre-tax bucket, tax-free buckets I talked about at the beginning. That's called asset location. And that's what we talk about. It's kind of tricky to understand, but
this should make it a little bit clear. And it should, it's kind of a little light bulb came on when I read this. You want to place investments with low expected returns, such as bonds, into tax deferred accounts. Okay. So what that does, and don't think for a minute, because that's the first thought. What you don't want to make a lot of money? No, that's not what we're saying. But any diversified portfolio has riskier things that make more money and has low risk things that make less money. All that's doing is balancing your risk. Okay. So you want to put investments with low expected returns in tax deferred accounts because that reduces that big hunk of money that has to be taxed one day. Okay.
so stick with us, right? So that's like bonds, and that's even or you can go as far as money markets, or what they call in the thrift savings plan, the G fund, government's curve. They are low, right? Return, but they're safe. But you put those in the tax deferred buckets, right? So when it get taxed, you're not going to have as much there. But then this is once again asset location strategy. Then take the high expected returns, like the growth funds, the small cap, the small value funds, emerging stock funds, and put those in the tax-free Roth accounts, right? Because what? The Roth accounts, after you put the money in there, you will not be paying any more on the earnings going forward. And that's why you will put those higher expected returns into the Roth because it's going to be tax free. So you get the strategy. The ones that are going to be taxed, you earn less, so you're going to be taxed less. The ones that are going to be not tax free, like the Roth, you put them in, it's going to be higher because it's going to grow higher because they're going to be like growth stocks, like I said, small cap, emerging cap. So that's what asset allocation is about.
Yeah, but let's take one. Let me try to bring it home. So I talked about putting low return items in a tax deferred account. Bob talked about high expected return items in a tax free Roth account. The third bucket is to have the majority of their investment return from capital appreciation, long-term capital gains. You want to put those in taxable accounts so you can take advantage of the stock market, the 40% or whatever the rate is based on your earnings of capital gains. So we talked about three bunches of money or three groups of money. We talked about tax deferred accounts. You want to minimize what you make there. That's probably a poor choice of words. You want to put your lower expected earnings items in that bucket. Then you got your things that you expect to grow. You put that in the Roth accounts. And then the things that you want to take advantage of capital gains, you put that in an account that's already been taxed. Okay? So there's three buckets of money we're talking about.
Right. So asset location can boost after tax returns because your tax deferred accounts will grow more slowly, and so will your future tax liability, while your tax free accounts will grow the most. That's as simple as we can make it. That's as simple as we can make it, though. And it's so important that, I mean, I didn't know nothing about this. And understand, too, you all, the difference between tax deferred accounts and tax pre-tax accounts. Taxable accounts is based on capital. The taxes are based on capital gains. And if you're in the 15 or 20% tax bracket for capital gains, that's why the ones that are not in your plan, you want to put them in there the most because you're going to not get taxed more than with the capital gains. Because the other ones will be considered well, it's just plain and simple. It's based on your ordinary income tax bracket.
Right. And we make it sound simple. This can be difficult to implement. It's not. Again, it takes some work. Okay, and everybody's situation is different. There's no blueprint anybody can get that's going to say this is how you do this. You got mutual fund, you got distributions, you got EFT holdings that might blend different asset classes such as growth and income funds or target date funds that might have a 60-40 split. So to do it effectively, you want investments that are very asset class pure. And by that, we mean low returns, long-term returns, capital gain returns. So you want to get things in the right bucket because, again, you want to grow your total value just as you normally would. You still want to have things that grow tremendously. Obviously you want to make big money, but you want to have it in the right place so you can minimize that tax bite.
So if you have any questions, you all, please put them in the comment box. We know this is a lot, but like we always say, knowledge is king. And, like even me and Dope had to, have a quorum and discuss some of this and make sure we had it, so we can lay it out and have you to better understand it. So, Dope, let's talk about Roth conversions. Now, investors can do a Roth conversion at any time, but there are three distinct windows. And I know you all heard about Roths, but there's three distinct windows of opportunity when the timing is golden for those looking to slash their taxes in retirement.
Yeah, and simply put, a Roth conversion is when you transfer money out of a pre-tax retirement account into an after-tax Roth. Okay, typically every dollar you convert is taxed as ordinary income, unless it was also funded with after-tax dollars. So it's basically saying, I got this tax-deferred money, I'm gonna pay taxes on it, and then I'm putting it into a Roth account, and I don't have to worry about taxes anymore.
Maddie said, how many different Roths are there?
Well, I mean, there's only one real Roth. There's a Roth account. You can get a Roth account that does different things, just like an IRA. Okay, so it's however you decide to manage that Roth. The Roth refers more to how it's handled from a tax basis, and it's more of its legal name of what the account is. So there's really one kind of Roth, but you can have a Roth that you have a mutual fund. You can have a Roth that you buy stocks in. You can have a Roth that you have in money market fund. So however you decide to whatever you decide to put into the Roth is obviously your choice. But Roth refers to the fact that you have money that's already been taxed that you don't have to worry about paying tax on it again. The money grows tax free from federal government.
Now, here's a problem, though. Most people are facing this is sometimes considered an issue with Roth conversions because most people are facing a retirement tax bomb and they still working, probably have high incomes and are in a high marginal tax bracket. So the last thing you want is a Roth conversion, which adds to your income and will be taxed at high tax rates. Instead, this is a good strategy to consider in low income years, like especially some young people, especially for people who retire early, who's going to retire early in their 50s and 60s, who may have several years to do conversions. Before Medicare means testing, surcharges kick in, before Social Security income kick in, and before the RMDs, retired minimum distribution, kicks in. There's several years that Roth conversions, if you start early in retirement.
Yeah, and that first window, I think Bob's referring to is right before you enroll into Medicare. Because if you do that Roth after you're in Medicare, that money that's now taxable counts against you for your Medicare surcharges. And so
Right.
that would have to be before you turn 65 is when you want to do that. Now, as he mentioned, you also want to do that when you have a low income year for whatever reason that may be. And so that's your first window before you go on Medicare. If you are in a position to move some money into a Roth, that'd be the time to do it.
So the second window for Roth conversion is between retirement and when you start taking Social Security or your pension income, at which point your income may be significantly higher and you may want to do smaller Roth conversions. Like this is additional argument for deferring Social Security benefits for several years.
Yeah. Okay. And that last window is up until you turn 72 when you got to start taking those required minimum distributions. If you can do it, you're already taking Medicare and you have some low tax years, you might want to consider taking some Roth conversions before you have to start taking those requirement minimum distributions. Because as Bob said, if you got a million bucks saved, that's about 40 grand you're gonna have to add income. And so if you have a low tax year before you have to start taking that, you might want to consider doing that before you have to start taking it. And don't think you cannot take it, because if you fail to take that RMD, that required minimum distribution, there is a 50% tax of the amount that you should have taken. So don't think you can just skip it. Nobody wants to give up 50% of what they accumulated. So the best way to do it is to figure out how to do it efficiently.
Yeah, because Uncle Sam, he says you have been paying me for years. You're going to have to start taking out something, and that's what Uncle Sam. He's like, we want to get some of that money, but you don't want to get penalized for not taking it out because that's a big penalty. So another strategy on that Roth conversion is, and Dope talked about this to me about, just doing a small amounts over a period of time. You might say you have $500,000 in your traditional tax deferred account. You might want to take just 20,000 and convert it into a Roth, so you don't get hit heavily with a tax bracket in that year. You might then defer next 20,000 the next year. Go ahead, Dope.
Yeah, and you look at your tax bracket, and this takes some work. You have to see where you are tax-wise, what tax bracket you are in, how much money you've earned, what's your taxable income. And you may decide that, okay, I'm in the 20% tax bracket, and I'm willing to take a Roth conversion that would take me up to the 24% tax bracket. And that the tax brackets are pretty wide for both single and married people. Have a lot of leeway to take some of that money now. And the thing we failed to mention, Bob, if you got $1 million today, let's say at 65, you have $1 million. And we've talked about the rule of 72, and that money doubles every 7 years if you're making 10%. But we'll use 9% and say the money doubles every 8 years. And the fact that people are living longer. So that 1 million in 8 years is going to be 2 million. In 16 years, it's going to be 4 million. Okay. So now when you start talking about taking required minimum distributions on 4 million bucks, as you are 65 plus 6, what did I say, 18, as you're 83 years old, that's a lot of money. That's a big. So again, we've never really had to think about looking that far in advance, but you have to if you. And again, most of what we talked about has been for federal. A lot of this also applies for states too, depending on what state you live. And this whole thing takes work. It takes thinking or hiring someone to make decisions for you, but you just don't want to give up money that you don't have to. You don't want to pay taxes that you don't have to, you know?
And as we always say, we know there's a lot of information, but seek tax help. Seek some information from a CPA who can help you understand what we're talking about: asset location, Roth conversions, um, staggering your Roth conversions, and looking at your tax bracket. Because we always said it, building wealth it takes work, and if you don't really fully understand it, then seek the help, because it could save you a lot of money if you can hear what we're saying. Hey, Dope, you've been breaking up, and I think I've been breaking up too. It's been a weird connection tonight, so we hope you been able to follow us, but that's out of our hands.
Hey, Bob, and you said building wealth takes work. Well, maintaining wealth takes more work. Okay.
That's a good one. Building wealth takes work, but maintaining it, yeah, getting there sometimes is not that hard. Maintaining is the key, though.
And
so,
again, but it's something new to us. It's something that we haven't had to do because we never had any money to do it with. But you don't want to give up any more money than you have to.
No. All right, Dope, let's go to the video. Let's go to the summary and the takeaways, because that was a lot. But we're gonna sum it up for you all. Can you see that, Dope?
Oh, clear as can be.
Okay, I'll take the first one, Dope. Plan for taxes in retirement. That's what our whole point of this discussion today is: plan for your taxes in retirement. And as we said, young people who are online today, it is never too early. And this is where you start now. And like you said, if you got those, especially young people, you might want to start putting the money into a Roth where you're at low income earnings now. But in the older people, just get some advice. It's those 4 buckets we talked about. So plan your taxes.
Analyze your savings strategy, whether you're young at all. If you're still in some sort of savings plan, decide whether it should be in a tax-deferred account or an after-tax account. Okay, look at it, figure out what makes sense for you, look down the road, and see which is best going to serve you in the long term.
And remember what we tell you about utilizing asset location. Asset location is talking about the different asset classes in specific tax buckets: the taxable bucket, the pre-tax, the tax-free, the after-tax. So asset location is really important, you all, because it can save you a lot of money down the road. As Dote said, as your money, say you're not putting any more in retirement, but it's sitting in funds that are growing, and they can be doubling over time. And before you know it, you can have a big, wonderful, spanking savings, but the tax bill could be very high.
Yeah. Roth conversions can be beneficial. If you don't understand them yourself, or you don't know how much or whether you should do it, get help. Again, that we're talking about, this can save you thousands of dollars if you've done it right. Not talking about avoiding taxes, we're talking about minimizing taxes. And a Roth conversion is one of those things that may help you.
The last but most important is building wealth is an ongoing battle, and maintaining it is even more. We always talk about having a financial plan. We talk about budgeting. We talk about limiting your spending. We talk about taking control of your credit cards, and talk about investing. And this is another part of it: minimizing your taxes in retirement, because it can really, really take a chunk out of what you worked hard to save.
Yeah, and we've kind of focused on all the negatives and the hard work, but if you do it and you do it right, there's nothing better than having money and not have to worry about where your money's coming from. That's a great feeling, of having money to do what you want to do. But it's really important to maximize what you make and minimize what you have to pay in taxes. That's the name of the game.
Though Rodney asked a question: have you all discussed how to select a financial advisor? If you haven't, it could be a good topic for a future show. Actually, Rodney, we had a show where we did talk about financial advisors, but we will definitely bring that up again and discuss it. But for tonight, if you want to find out about any financial advisors, you can go out on FINRA. That's FINRA. That's the Financial Industry Regulatory Agency. FINRA.org, FINRA.org. And they have a whole, because they're the ones who regulate stockbrokers and the exchanges like Robinhood and all of the mutual funds. You can go there and look under financial advisors, and they have financial advisors under there that you can go and find out.
Yeah, and within the next month, we're actually going to have a financial advisor on our show. And
Yes.
he'll talk about some of the things you need to be looking for, some of the things he's seen in his career. So within the next month, we're going to have a guest, of the guest being a financial advisor.
And we're going to have more than one, so you don't think that we're going to be biased. We'll have a couple of, because every financial advisor actually have different philosophies too. So we're going to give a good question, Rodney, and we're going to definitely do that. So once again, Dope, I'll shout out to my brother Carl, Joanne, my sister Linda, my sister Nolia, Maddie. Maddie said, keep your health insurance. I hear you, girl. Rodney Madison, the noteexperience.com. Go out there and check them out. And oh my God, I got my young boy. We got a young boy on here at Bowie State, a senior in finance, right? Khalil got about a 3.8, getting ready to graduate, Dope. He said, Mr. Kinzer speaking facts. Thanks for joining in, Khalil, man. I really appreciate that, man. We wish you well, man, and graduating this year. And I'm so proud of you, man. You're doing so great. Keep up the good work. So with that, Dope, you have any closing remarks?
No, I'm going to enjoy myself down here in Florida, man.
Yeah, that's why we had a little tough connection, dope, down there in Florida. What's the weather down there? What's the temperature?
It was 80 today. It's gorgeous. My
Oh,
son-in-law
God.
his doctorate degree and his graduation is Saturday, and I'm here to celebrate him and his accomplishment.
Which
It'll
son-in-law?
be
You got two now.
Dr. Doty.
Oh, oh, wait a minute. I thought you said son-in-law.
That's what I said. Hey, that's a long story. He'll be Dr. Doty.
I'll leave that there. Thank you. Congratulations, Dr. Doty. So look, you all, we're here. Make sure you share this. You can go out there, even get our last shows if you missed them. And we do have ones where we talked about financial advisors. Go out there, check them out on the Facebook Live, and you can also check them out. But you have to subscribe on YouTube to be able to go and find them. But just put it in the search engine, the FITT Show, FITT, and you can bring up any of those shows.
Hey, Bob, one last point. And if anybody has any questions about this, because we went through it kind of fast, we actually debated going through a case study that Mr. McClellan had in his article that showed, and it was somebody who started with a $3 million, was it 3 or 2.5 million dollar IRA account, and the savings generated by the Ross conversions and the asset locations were huge. We're talking $200,000-300,000. So it's if you have any questions about it, ask us. And again, if we know, we'll answer it. If not, we'll find the answer. But if you think it can help you, it behooves you to try to understand this and take advantage of it.
Modestine said, "Where are you in Florida, dope?"
St. Pete on the beach.
Ain't you the lucky one? That's what Garnett said. I'm jealous, dope. Yeah, me too, because my knees feel it too. I need to go somewhere where it's warm, man. Good gracious, man. I feel like the Tin Man out this mug. Oreo. But look, love you all. Thank you for tuning in. Good. Thanks for all your comments as usual. And look, you all have a wonderful, wonderful week. And we see you next week on the 15th. Have a good day.